This jacket's getting tight. My arm's swollen and I eat too much on Thanksgiving. And every day since. If you can't own a gun and you're looking to stay safe during immigrant knife attacks, German doctors teach a towel technique that works as well as the COVID vaccine, further eroding trust in our medical institutions. Most Americans no longer see a value in college degrees, giving an excuse to kids to party harder on their parents' tuition. Next, we put out the call to our listeners to tell us about the AI tools you used to win Thanksgiving arguments with your family. And lastly, we take a trip to the yoga clinic that can train you how to breathe out of your ass. I'm here at the Yoga Butt Breathing Clinic of America with none other than Sensei Warren.
I'm not a sensei, but I can teach you the way to butt breathing.
Well, that's what I'm here for. Now, we do have a couple of questions for you. I always viewed my rectum as exit only. If I have air coming up through there and it feels kind of nice, is this going to make me gay?
Well, it is 2025, and so you have to ask yourself, what even is being gay anymore?
I don't know that I want to take this class. And now, before we get started, I am curious to know, the air that comes up through my butt, will it be re-released as farts?
You know, there's still a debate about that, and they're doing a study at Yale right now. All right, now let's show you how you do it.
So it's like dipping a bucket into a well, kind of. And how do you pull the air up as you go? Ooh, I think I felt it on that one. It's a bit of a tingle, huh? You know, that's kind of refreshing. Let's make love. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. It is a pleasure to be with all of you here today. Listen, we're not a lot of news talk today, all right? There's not a lot of news talk because I spent most of the past week finding out the 25 things that you could buy as a discount on Amazon. That was every article this past week. How much of an ADD wormhole did you guys go through as you were trying to read the news, trying to figure out what you could buy for 30% off because they put it 60% off in November? Were you guys tracking these things like stock trades? Does anything feel worse than when you finally pull the trigger and then Cyber Monday, it gets a little bit cheaper? Tuesday comes around, they're like, you know what? People aren't buying enough of this stuff. We're going to drop the prices even more. Did you guys get out there? Did you stock up? Did you lock in your deals? Did you take your amphetamines and just sit at home and start charting out prices, loading up for the entire year? Because as a result of that, there's no show this week. I'm just going to be talking to you about vacuum cleaners. It's the Martha Stewart show where we just get into all the various things that we purchased this past week on holiday discounts. You got to get your coupons ready. All right, listen, we do have some things to get into, but I have an announcement about show announcements, which is for all you fans out there who love the announcements, and you don't even listen to the rest of the show. You just come here right at the top of the show, and you're like, what kind of announcements is Rob going to go off on for multiple minutes and then drone on and then get distracted and then not get to the news? We're moving the announcements like the middle of the show. We're being dictated by AI analytics, by the algorithms, and the only show growth that this thing seems to have is over on Spotify, and we do seem to have very high conversion rates when people check out the episode. So that's it. We're going to start doing, we're going to get into things quicker, and then we're going to take a nice show break in the middle and do some of the general announcements. And then for all you announcement enthusiasts, now you got to stay tuned all the way to the middle of the show to find out what's going on in the Run Your Mouth universe. We're going to make a whole segment. We're going to change the backdrop. It's going to be, I'll get a big podium. We'll get a guy to toot the horn, unleash a roll, and we're going to formally do announcements in the middle of the show so that hopefully we can convert more new listeners. I'm even thinking about maybe doing a pre-show just on my website where we get warmed up, we go through all the dribble, and then we feel like all the dribble's been goofed out of my mouth, and now we're on to actual substance. Then we'll play the intro and go live for everybody else. And you guys can already subscribe if you just want to give me money, $5 a month, robbernsteincomedy.com. And down the road, whole bunch of porch sets are going to be going up on there. We'll be doing more subscriber content, and I'm playing around with the pre-show idea, the pre-show warm-up show, fan calls. We can take Slav calls. We can get all the anti-Semitism out of the way before we even start the show. We can do 2 rounds of announcements, a special round of announcements just for the subscribers. And so I'm putting it out there. Announcements from now on is going to be like a mid-show activity. And so announcement enthusiasts are going to have to stay tuned for more announcements. With that said, last pre-show announcement will be got a couple more dates left. Weekend out in Colorado, going to be doing some skiing up at Steamboat with Kyle Ruff, and then a headlining gig at Inga's Lounge, which is going to be a Sunday day drinker. Which, come out for that. I think that's going to be all a Porch Tour next year, is just tagging them on to Dave Smith gigs and hitting markets on Sundays for early day drinkers. So come out for those. They're a good time. Ripped off Stanhope on that idea, but they're great. It's a Sunday afternoon. You get hammered, you watch the show, and then you go back to your family and yell at your wife or whatever you otherwise had planned for Sunday. I don't know what Sundays look for all you married folks out there. All right, let's get into the news. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. I will take a couple of comments here. Earjo2567, most of the lefties recently boycotted Spotify because they were running ICE recruitment ads. Well, you're going to get that. So then good. Then you got a more concentrated market of conservatives over on Spotify who are looking for that 50,000 payday. Matt Rudy 212, you coming back to Florida Panhandle? I missed the last one. I think you were in Pensacola. I was in Pensacola. You definitely missed it. And we'll see. Maybe next year Porch Tour. But Porch Tour is going to look a little bit different next year. But we're done with announcements. I already said that. We're not doing announcements anymore. So let's get into some news stories. We got some wacky nonsense up front, and then we're going to recap everything that happened over the last couple days in the news, and then we're going to get Steven the Wonderboy non-scientist on to give us the breakdown of some of the recent COVID storylines, which hopefully we won't get censored. Who knows? Maybe they're bringing back censorship for those topics. First, just obscure story that I saw is, a lot of us out there, not the millennials, because they're a bunch of queefs and apparently they don't drink. Everyone just smokes weed now. That's I guess, the new thing for these kids. They're all on their edibles. They made vape pens too easy. You don't have to smell like weed. You don't have to worried about getting arrested. And so, apparently these kids, they're a bunch of health nuts. They don't smoke anymore, and they're just committed to being boring individuals and not being fun at parties. That's the world that we live in now. And we all knew that drinking wasn't good for our health. We did it because it's a kindness you do to other human beings, that when you leave your house and you show up to a party, you're present, you're not anxious, you're engaging, and sometimes you engage in chaos that's entertaining for other people. It's a gift. Your drinking is a gift to other people. And the more that you think you need to quit, unless you're really in that category of being a problem, the more fun you probably are when you show up and you engage with other people. But there's a lot of people out there think they're drinking too much, think they got to cut back, think they got to stop boozing. And I was reading this article on Sand News about this new virtual reality clinic, which will basically put you into the anxiety-inducing situations where you would otherwise want to drink. And firstly, off the bat, showing up to a clinic that's going to put me into virtual reality to not drink, it sounds like you don't even need to put the headset on. Just being around those losers and being in that clinic would be enough. That if you just had a bar there and made me sit in that waiting room and then made me listen to some lefty idiot drone on about the health benefits of not drinking, that would already be enough. Of whatever skills you got to teach me, you probably don't have to put the AI headset on. But I was just thinking, because this person, they look like they're at a fun house party, which, if you're already at the stage of not drinking, you probably don't need to be at a house party that just has booze out on a kitchen countertop that looks like they're throwing this person into a college setting. But, are they going to do the real stuff? Like 4 hours after your flight's been delayed for 9 times and now you've been stuck in an airport for 10 hours and it's your 4th flight of the weekend? Are they going to have that simulation? Or you're at a party and you don't want to listen to this person anymore and you've already used too many bathroom excuses that you can't go anywhere? Or can they mimic the voices in your head that just goes, I'm a boring person? Can they audibly say that to you in your head? Need to leave, and so where's the booze? I'm just wondering what kind of simulations this thing's running and whether or not it can actually be helpful for all of us out here who really are just trying to do our part to be fun people. All right, now, we're running a contest for the storylines that we're least interested in for 2024. I was so uninterested in the last one, I can't even remember what the storyline was, but we do have some contenders. I think the last one already won. But sometimes, it's good, the entire world, you get stuck at parties with these young kidlings, and sometimes it's good to know what everyone's up and into. And there is a part of the Harry and Meghan Markle storyline that I appreciate, which is that they're basically just famous at this point because we all like to hate them, which is it's a weird way to live your life where you're not trolling and you like the fame and you like the money that comes with the fame, but just every storyline about you is just so people can open up the paper and go, oh, here's these two people that I dislike. What are the two people that I dislike doing now? And speaking about people that you don't really care for, I would like to play this clip, which was making the rounds, and it's none other than Kim Kardashian, because I know all of you guys are regular watchers of the Kim Kardashian reality show, but some of you, you might not tune in every single week live with your friends and have a couple beverages and, like a readers group, or instead of reading a book, you watch this show and then you talk about all the things you learned from the very successful Kardashian clan. And so here was a clip that I'd like to play for everybody in case you missed it, because maybe you don't have that ritual. Roll a clip, producer man, and don't fuck up the sound this time.
What are those holes?
Yeah, I don't like that. So what the holes mean is low activity. Compared to this one, the front part of your brain is less active than it should be. With your frontal lobes as they work now, it would be harder to manage stress. And that's not good for you, especially as you're studying and you're getting ready to take the boards.
That just can't be. It just can't. Not accepting.
For whatever reason, you're not getting, and it could be the chronic stress that you've been under trying to think about taking the boards in a couple of months and studying 10 hours a day, not to mention all the other things that go on in your life.
Yeah.
But we have to make it better.
I got to get on a plan to really figure this out because I have some to do this summer.
I love the nicest doctor in the world being like, lady, I think you're too stupid to be a lawyer, but you make enough money. It's probably not worth stressing about. Nobody in law wants to be in law. If everyone could have been in a porn video and then made billions of dollars off of reality shows and makeup lines, they would all be doing that instead. So in the nicest way possible, we'll pretend like there's stress-related holes in your brain, and what you need to do is decompress and maybe not put the stress on yourself of acknowledging that law is probably just not for you because you might not be intelligent enough for it. But you got to like that doctor. You gotta really respect that doctor. I would like doctors that lied to me more. I would like that. Is there anything worse in life than when you show up to a doctor, you actually show up because you think you have a problem, and the doctor just tells you that you're being a pussy? They don't even have the dignity to be like, hey, it's a really good thing that you came in. That was smart of you. That could have been a serious issue. Here's a pill. Take this pill, and it's going to be cleared up by tomorrow. There's nothing worse than when you show up and they're just like, what's the problem? Like, get out of here. You're fine. Here's a bill. Thanks for waiting in our waiting room for the last 12 hours. All right, let's take a couple of comments, and then let's get into some actual substantive news stories. We've got malice-filled Americans saying that we should impeach Trump, and we've got Daniel Watch saying he came to Mandeville in Louisiana, which is my hometown. I don't live there anymore, but if it was close, it would have been awesome to go out and see you, Robbie. That was a very fun and rowdy show. I'd like to do more shows at random bars that would have me. The entire town showed up. That was a good money-making evening, and we had a good time with it. All right, let's get into some news stories, some actual substance, the heart of the show, the stuff that we're just going to be starting the show with from now on. And I have no idea what clip I have here, so producer man, lay it on me. Let's see what we got.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find inoffensive or retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think that
you have a problem with it? what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walls.
Sometimes you got to love Donald Trump, and when he's going to double down on, you got a better word for sending money to Somalian terrorists? Was it inappropriate? At what point can I call somebody retarded? You got to love a good double down, especially when it's the president using the word retarded. That's the kind of free speech some of you guys voted for. There's good Trump and there's bad Donald Trump. There's tariff, wage war, give all the money to Israel, bury the Epstein files, make sure my family's making crypto profits, set up a golf course, and instead of having our political department try and talk to Putin, let's get a bunch of my family members who will make money and send them there over instead, and maybe we can figure out how we can all make some money off these minerals and stop fighting each other. There's that side of Donald Trump. And then there's Run Your Mouth Donald Trump, who will say some crazy shit and be like, oh, are you not allowed to say crazy shit? What are you guys, a bunch of pansies going to censor the internet off the words that people use? Hey, you got a better word for what Walls did? No, I stand by it. I stand by the fact that what he did was retarded, and then he must be retarded if he did it. Do you need me to use the word retarded again? Because I will. I'll say it as many times as I need to for you, the news stations, to actually acknowledge how dumb what he did was. So I'd asked Kyle about this on the last episode because there were just a couple headlines that had made the rounds about it, and I dug in a little bit more. And so to give you guys the short on what took place out in Minnesota is that apparently they have aggressive policies for basically socialist wealth redistribution and to try and make money available to the poor. And so you get all these Somalian immigrants that move in, and they start taking advantage of these schemes. They start claiming that they've got a lot of autistic kids. They start claiming that they're giving out meals. They're making all sorts of claims. And because Minnesota has generally, I guess, a lot of funds available for this stuff, they're sending a lot of money to what can turn out to be completely fraudulent schemes with absolutely none of this money making it to the poor. At the moment, I think they have acknowledged that $1 billion has gone missing just fraudulently. And there's estimates, or I've seen the number, that it could be as high as $10 billion. And now here's where the story gets a little bit juicier. So some of this money was being sent over, I think it was to Somalia, and the money that goes through Somalia, the terrorists basically, they run the region. They got to take their cut, 15% for terrorism before it makes it to other people. And so some of this money, I think, was making it to apparently Somalian terrorists. We're going with the most scandalous version of this. And then you got whistleblowers out there who are also claiming that they had raised the alarms. They tried to let, the higher-ups, including Walls, know, hey, we've got lax standards here. We're processing out too much money. It's going to bad individuals. $250 million is apparently being spent on meals, and none of these meals are being delivered. This is some bad governance right here. We're sending a lot of money out, and none of it's going to the causes or people that we say. And at the end of the day, I guess if you're the governor, you should be able to, hey, the couple $1 billion that we gave out to poor people last year, did it actually make it to the poor people? But when you got a large voting contingency of people, I guess, that shouldn't even be in the country, or they got relatives who do vote, and they're integrated enough that you just don't want to disturb this illegal community, then you start just trying to look the other way. So they're claiming that they're going to actually investigate Walls. We'll see where this goes. There is this, it's kind of classic Donald Trump with the Bugs Bunny syndrome of the people who are loudest at kind of going against Trump. It just seems to come back at them the worst. And, if Tim Walz hadn't been the VP on the ticket with Kamala Harris, maybe he wouldn't even be on the radar and this story wouldn't be as loud. But, hey, listen, go after the retard for all the retarded things that he did. That's what I say. I endorse Trump on that one. Make that bumper sticker. Go after the retards for the retarded things that they've done. And in this case, if you've got lack oversight, you're preaching, hey, we need to have forced wealth redistribution to help out the poor, and it's just becoming a grifter environment where everyone just claims, oh, yeah, we're helping out the poor, and you're just sending out those checks, and you're not actually checking to make – that's bad governance. If you're not checking where the money's going and making sure it's actually, and why are you just giving it to other people? Aren't you the government? Shouldn't you guys be able to handle these programs directly? Shouldn't you be able to directly give assets to poor people you think are in need? Why do you got to go through a middleman? If you're the government and you're so good at governing and you just want to take money that was wrongfully acquired by rich individuals and give it to poor people that need it, why do you got to go through middlemen on that? You would think that you guys would be the best at orchestrating these activities and services. Isn't that the whole pitch? But anyways, money's going out, and hopefully they actually, get their vengeance against Walls for it. And, bless Trump and his filthy mouth. Episode brought to you by YOKRATOM.com, only place in the entire world where you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. All right, now you've got Trump and seemingly really trying to get this war with Venezuela going. Seems like he wants this Venezuelan war. We've already delved into it. Apparently, according to the military experts that I hear from, it's got something to do with Cuba. We've got to end the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba's been a threat to us, and it's made our nation look bad by the fact that we haven't been able to overthrow Fidel Castro. Because Fidel Castro, he's still a threat to this nation. And so we need to make sure that any nation that's not Cuba but is somehow aligned with Cuba gets taken out so we can finally end the Cuban Missile Crisis. I really did my homework on this one to make sure that I fully understood the situation. But now, not enough people realize that Fidel Castro is still running Cuba and that we're still at risk for the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that tiny nation to our south continues to make us look good because after all these years, we weren't able to get rid of Fidel Castro. And so now we have to go after the partnering nations. And since people aren't aware enough of this storyline, they have to sell us on the idea that drugs are coming in from Venezuela and they're killing our people. And so we got to get rid of these things. And before we get into the double tap situation, I guess in some regard, apparently this is working, because I guess cocaine is so not coming into the country, it's getting more expensive. And I can speak for the American people here. Nobody wanted cocaine more expensive. They wanted clean cocaine. Nobody who out here is voting for less cocaine. People wanted cleaner cocaine. I'm not even a cocaine guy. I'm an Adderall guy, okay? Yeah, cocaine's a sucker's drug. It's a quick ramp up, and then, shit, I need more cocaine. And then you got to be worried about the fentanyl stuff, and then you make too much diarrhea the next day. Not to mention, it turns you gay where your penis doesn't work and you want to start talking about your feelings. It's not a drug for me. Can't even tell you the last time. Actually, I can tell you. It was 2 years ago. And then before that, it was 2 years prior to that. Not a drug I like. Adderall, on the other hand, from the pharmaceutical companies, know exactly what you're getting. It's got a nice, slow, even burn. And you know that you're going to be angry later in the evening and regret having taken it. But you know that that's going to happen. And you also know that you're not too at risk for shitting your pants the next day. So anyways, apparently, I guess to some extent, maybe I was overplaying my hand saying none of the drugs are coming from Venezuela because you got a report here from Zero Hedge that's saying that cocaine prices are going up. And then you even had Donald Trump claiming that cocaine imports into this country are down 95%. I don't know to what extent that's true. Now, in regards to the double tap, everyone's very upset that I guess once there was a strike on the boat, that they then killed the survivors on the boat. And this might just be too autistic of me, but I feel like when you just criticize the second strike, it kind of sounds to me like it's an endorsement of the first strike. Kind of sounds like people aren't that outraged over the fact that our government's trying to get us into a war and that there's killing these people. And so the reason why they say it's worse is because these are defenseless individuals and they're no longer an imminent threat. And I guess there's some aspect of, I guess that they surrendered type deal, but they didn't. So I don't know if that's part of it. But listen, you're shooting Hellfire missiles or whatever from the sky. So already defenseless. You wanted to kill these people. That was your intention on the first strike, was to kill people who were defenseless to the weapons that you were using against them. They already were not a direct threat. They weren't actually coming to the United States of America on that boat ride. Apparently they have to stop somewhere en route. And so they're not a direct threat. So the fact that they were off the boat because you already attacked them or in the boat, either way, they weren't actually a direct threat. And then lastly, you hadn't proved the fact that these people were drug dealers. And even if they were drug dealers, I don't think we currently have a law that you just kill people who are drug dealers without trial. So I don't really understand why it's so much more outrageous that they double tap these individuals versus they're just killing these individuals. And when you start criticizing the double tap and not the original tap, kind of seems to miss the bigger story, in my opinion. Are you saying that the first strike wasn't a problem? But everyone's all outraged about the double tap. All right, let's take a couple of comments here. Wilson Fire. When will our generation become president in 40 years? When we're 80? I don't know what that means. Fidel Castro, haven't heard that name in a grip. I haven't heard the phrase in a grip in a long time, if I've even ever heard it. You won't sleep for 36 hours, but you're on point today. All right, I'll take the compliment. And I will be asleep tonight. I can promise you that. All right, next storyline. And this is on the topic of these double boat strikes. Here we've got the human ball sack on the news, drumming up more support for the military in ignoring orders. Let's roll the clip, producer, man. Quit wasting our time.
You can certainly go to the judge, advocate generals, the lawyers, and have a discussion about it. If you don't have time, you just say simply, I'm not going to do that. That's against the law.
It puts a lot of burden on the troops to make a decision in real time.
But it's a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military, but that is their responsibility, and they can figure out, a reasonable person can tell something that is legal and something that is illegal.
So would you refuse these specific orders to strike drug boats if you were still in uniform?
Well, the difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a second strike, and those things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received on how this is all legal. And I was saying weeks ago, my concern is with the service members, that we're gonna put these individuals in a really, really tough decision, in a tough place. And they may find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal. It is not fair to them. That's why we need presidents and Secretary of Defense who understand the Constitution, who understand the rule of law, and have more respect for the Constitution and the country and service members than the whims of a president.
All right. First is, and I say this as a bald man, and perhaps my face will wilt in the same way, but if a scientist turned a testicle into a human being in a lab, tell me it wouldn't look like that. Tell me. You sit down right now as you listen to the Run Your Mouth podcast and say in good conscience that if a scientist figured out how to turn a human testicle into an adult male, it wouldn't look and sound exactly like that. But now, what I take issue with here is, why can't we live in a world where people say what they mean and mean what they say? Why do you got to tiptoe here? If you actually don't think that these strikes are legal and you think that service members should not be listening to orders, why not just say that? Instead, it's the ambiguous legal thing of, well, no, I'm not criticizing any particular policy. Now, this policy does look real bad, and I would hate to have to make this decision, but I'll just get on the news and say that they should ignore order. Well, can you, what specific order? Like, I'm just saying, you're not a nobody. You're not me. You're a politician. And I think what's going on is wrong. I also think that the game that this guy's playing is not great. It's not great. I guess he's starting to position himself pretty well, even though he hasn't directly, even here, criticized this policy. But doesn't it just drive you nuts? This is what let them get away with COVID. I didn't say it. He said it. It was from that department. No, that department. No one ever threatened your job. It's because they don't speak with clarity, and it's always like a vagueness of what they're alluding to. But then you ask them point blank, so are you actually going to hold that opinion? No. It's the same thing with RFK Jr. a lot of times on vaccines also. It's like, why are you guys uncomfortable just stating your positions in a clear manner? And if you're not willing to, then I guess they should just be ignored as bullshit. It's the clear authority thing that I've spoken to before in the past, that if the government's trying to impose on you, it shouldn't be as a veiled threat that they can then turn around and be like, no, we never told you you had to do that. And it's the same thing here, where it's like, if you think that these strikes are illegal and that service members should not be following these orders, then say it. And then go bring to Congress, I don't know, some sort of indictment against the Trump administration that they haven't declared war in Congress, or take some action. But what is this nonsense of, well, they should turn down, oh, well, I can't comment on this one. Well, then you don't have an opinion. Then say nothing. All right. Some comments. Runaway Slav, the lefties promised me a racist Hitler Trump, and it's taken long enough to start seeing it finally. Too bad he won't label India as third world, and the number of H-1B approvals outnumbers daily deportations. Black Eye 808, he looks like sperm had a baby with a testicle. Not bad. Not bad. All right, we've got more news to cover, and we got a lot to get through before Steven comes on. We might have to save some of this stuff for Friday. All right, and now this is what we named the episode after. We've got Zoran, who's looking for money. Remember, there's affordability crisis out there, and if he's going to make things free, he's going to need somebody to start contributing some money so that they can work on their scheme for how to bring you more free stuff. Because, sadly, because of all the money that government spent and how poorly it's stewarded our wealth and the favorable contracts it's given to unions and all the schemes that it's done in order to drive up prices, we now have an affordability problem. But what that means is if government gives you more money directly and makes more things free, you'll be able to afford your lifestyle. But sadly, the only way that we can actually initiate being able to bring you free stuff is if you guys reach into your own pockets and you contribute some money so that we can then figure out how to make things free. With 4 monthly contributions of a little bit more of your wealth beyond the taxes that you're paying, we can figure out how to get money from other people to make things free. Let's play the clip.
Out there. It's chilly in here. But one thing I'm warming up to is the idea of a fully funded transition. So go to transition2025.com, pitch in whatever you can. Let's win a city we can all afford.
All right, we're rolling that back. It's only 15
Friends,
seconds.
It's chilly out there. It's chilly in here. But one thing I'm warming up to is the idea of a fully funded transition. So go to transition2025.com, pitch in whatever you can. Let's win a city we can all afford.
It's not the only video he's made, by the way, plugging for funds. Any women out there who listens to this show, the three of you, if you could maybe come on the show and break down what this guy's riz is. We're going to use the kids' words. What is this guy's charisma that everybody likes him so much? Is he shockingly handsome and I don't see it? He's using like cheeseball lines of it's chilly in here, I'm eating chili, you're chilly, something chilly. I don't know. It's like Mr. Rogers energy or something. Can someone explain to me how this guy went from nothing to mayor of the city? Is it just a good lie about everything being free? At some point, I'm going to run on my Whatever You Need campaign. But I'd like to know, what is it about this guy that actually captures people and makes them think that he's going to make things free? And he's not off to a great start. He just needs you to contribute funds so that they can work out the free part. He hasn't quite figured out how the free part's going to happen until you guys contribute more money to him directly. All right, let's do another thing here. Oh, this is a juicy storyline. And you know what you do before you get a juicy storyline going? You plug another sponsor, SHEATHunderwear.com. I don't know about you guys. I loaded up on Black Friday. I saw an email from them today. I think things are still 30% off. I loaded up on those multi-packs. I took advantage of their Black Friday sale. Got myself at least 6 new of the bamboo underwears going down to just over my knees and making sure that my thighs don't have to rub together. So if you want that good underwear energy going into 2026, you got to go to sheathunderwear.com. Use promo code RYM. You're going to get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. Or if they've got a better promo code running, take advantage of it and shoot them an email and let them know that you heard about them on the Run Your Mouth podcast. All right. Now, this came out last week where apparently a whole bunch of documents got released in regards to the Epstein file, and they didn't do a good enough job redacting victim names, and so the lawyers reached out and went nuts and said, hey, we're not protecting victims here. And the second I saw that, I was like, man, that sounds intentional. That seems to me like they're intentionally, at the beginning of this thing, putting out names and information that they actually shouldn't be so that they could go, you see, this is why we have to take our time. You see, you guys rushed us. I know we have all the government. We preached to you once again on being government, the ability to govern, and we've got a lot of money here, and we know that you guys want this information, but in order to actually put out the information responsibly, maybe we can't even do it at all. I mean, obviously, we need to be the ones to do it, and you need to continue to have us in power because nobody else can do these things. But we're not that good at doing it, so we might not be able to do it at all because we can't actually pull it off responsibly, or we're going to have to be more aggressive with our redactions. It's already off to a shaky start when days after the information, oh, this stuff's going to be released, you've got complaints of like, well, not that stuff. And I don't even know specifically what came out. I think it was some victims that actually did not want their information out there. But I was proven right minutes later when I saw this tweet from Thomas Massey, which I will read to you guys. In an attempt to stop our Epstein Files Transparency Act from passing, Speaker Johnson directed Oversight Committee to conduct a parallel effort that never exposed a single criminal, but sadly, that decoy effort has released the names of dozens of victims. And so, according to Thomas Massey, when he was pushing for the Epstein releases, and then Johnson's up there going, it has to be done in the right way. It's got to be done in the right way. Most transparent administration ever. No one cares more about this than we do. And when that phony effort to pretend like the administration was actually interested in this and interested in finding these criminals and making this information available to the public, they then leaked the information or put out the information that they weren't supposed to put out, which sounds exactly like my storyline of this being intentional to try and prevent further releases. All right, we're cooking. We got so much more news to cover. Who else cover these stories for you guys? All right, here's another hot take. Zelensky's top aide, Andriy Yermak, resigns after raid on his home, upending Ukraine's team for peace talks. My read on this is that they're working every lead they can to try and pressure Zelensky into actually accepting a peace deal. Apparently, this guy Yermak was one of the lead negotiating figures, and he was very anti not spending more money and keeping the war running. And either it's the contingency within Ukraine that wants to out Zelensky and wrap up the war, or it's actually our negotiating team pulling some slick mafia tactics and starting to be like, all right, listen, there's the easy way and the hard way. And the hard way is that you guys all go down for corruption. The easy way is you just take the deal the way it's offered and you can leave with your wealth and your dignity. I can't prove any of this. I'm just reading some tea leaves here. And the read I'm getting from this is that the forces, some of the higher forces actually do want to wrap up this war. And Zelensky he's still pushing for no territory concessions, continuing to be able to have a military, probably funded by either Europe, who just then kicks it to us, and then also security guarantees. They're finally trying to figure out how they can exert a little bit more pressure on him to be like, no, you have to say yes to all of this, or we're not. Well, Trump's not doing the one thing he has to do, which is we just won't support you anymore. All right. Black Eye 808. Zelensky seems really bad at cabinet picks. LOL. Yeah. He's really bad at picking his friends who then are shitty friends and use those positions to then grift money. But none of that has anything to do with Zelensky. His exact friends that he put into the position that he worked with on getting into power, who then turned out to be running schemes to grift all the money that was coming into the country. Nothing to do with Zelensky. He just has some really shitty friends. Now you've got Netanyahu is formally asking for a pardon. He's making the request. And you talk about a good sitcom. I think it might be time for the Netanyahu-Zelensky Miami years, where they both go down and they live in the high rises of Miami with Netanyahu's son, and they do Dancing with the Stars. They still get on all of our political channels and talk about how Russia's bad and Iran's got nuclear warheads, and they can just enjoy all the money that they grifted out of their countries and peacefully go away. But you got Netanyahu formally seeking a pardon. We will see how that plays out. But, Trump clearly supports the idea. And who knows, maybe Trump will exert pressure on the Israeli government that Netanyahu's got to walk away scot-clean, or he's not sending more money over there. Wouldn't that be amazing if that was the one thing that got Donald Trump to be like, we're not sending money here anymore? All right. Here's an interesting one. And I really put it to you guys because I'm curious your thoughts on this. I'll go to the chat in a minute. I'll set it up, and I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts. This was from the New York Post. Trump doesn't rule out deporting alleged D.C. Guardsman's killer, Ramanula Lakanuski's family. I didn't read that right. Looking at that right now. And I think I've said this thought out loud on the show, but I think when people commit, let's call them crimes of atrocity, which I would have a strict standard of essentially intentionally murdering innocent civilians. Like if you murder someone because you were drunk and they slept with your wife, you go to jail, and you're not allowed to do it, but we're like, that shit happens. You actually loved your wife, she cheated on you, and this guy was the guy that did it, and maybe she even said to him that he was single and it wasn't his fault, but you're enraged, you dedicated your life to this lady, and you killed a guy. That's not a crime of atrocity. That it's a crime. You're not allowed to do it. You got to go to jail. But we're talking about when people are completely psychotic and they just decide, you know what? I hate my life. I'm going to go to a school and I'm going to shoot some people. I'm going to go to this movie theater. I'm going to shoot some people. I'm going to go to this church. I'm going to shoot some people. We're talking about those situations. And I guess it would still apply for if you decided to walk into a downtown area and kill random cops or, other service members. We're going to call it crimes of atrocity. And I think I've also said this on the show, but we have some laxness for crimes when they're committed by crazy people. And I personally feel with crazy people that I could walk up to a homeless person who is shouting at the top of their lungs, naked on a street corner, covered in their own feces, and 9 out of 10 times if I said to them, hey, I'll give you $100 if you walk to the end of the street and you walk back, 9 out of 10 times that person will go, okay. Now, you might have someone so crazy that they'll say no. But I'm going to venture to guess we should run this experiment that 9 out of 10 times they have enough decision-making power and enough rationality to go, walking to the end of that street is not that hard. I can walk to the end of the street, come back, and earn this $100. And I do wonder if our current criminal justice system, if you're a crazy person, that you can all of a sudden get a ton of attention on the media for the crime that you committed and then spend time in jail, maybe get the death penalty, maybe not get the death penalty, that for some crazy people, that seems to not be enough to keep them from wanting to commit crimes. And then you got to wonder, well, what punishments might we be able to exert that would actually scare crazy people out of their crazy and go, you know what? I don't want that ending for myself. Is it more of a immediate public execution? Is it that you have to, in some form, I don't really like the idea of punishing people's family members because I think everybody has their own decision-making powers, and you can have shitty kids. That happens, and so you really should not be responsible for other people in your family. You're responsible for yourself and yourself only. Now, maybe that's different if you've got a psychotic 14-year-old kid and you're giving them a gun type deal. That's a little bit different because if they then use the weapon that you empowered them to use, and by all metrics, you should have been aware of the fact, then there's some responsibility. But if if you got an adult child that no longer lives in your house, they go out, they do something psychotic, like I don't really think it's fair to take her home. But I do wonder what if worse punishments for these specific categories of crime might prevent people from committing those crimes, and if perhaps financial punishments against family members. I really don't like the idea of family members, but I think I could get behind like a naked hanging or something else that might actually scare a guy. I don't know. I throw that to you guys. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. And the only thought I see in the chat right now is from Runaway Slav, which I'm going to guess has nothing to do with this, but it's the only one there, so I'll read it. Had fresh Afghanis as neighbors in the units above and below me right after the 2020 withdrawal. Live like it's year 800. The ones across the street wash their rugs in the middle of the street, blocking it. They don't have other places that they can wash their rugs. They got to do it out in the street and block the street. That seems like a whole lot. Oh, I didn't even realize this, but Steven's just been sitting there waiting to come on the show. My bad, buddy. I didn't, are you on early? Am I late? Did you just hop on?
No, you're fine. I mean, I popped on early, but I was over here doing some stuff, listening to you like some other like RYM, and
There
well
you
done,
go.
dude. Your
All right.
articulation's great. Your delivery, it's good. I like this. Good episode.
You see, you're a sweetheart. That's why we keep you around. All right, let's as long as I have you here. What time is it? It's let's cover one more story, and then let's get into the COVID stuff, and then I'm gonna save this stuff for another episode because I do have a hard out at what is it? 2:30? 2:30. Yeah. Okay. So thus far they threatened us with this real ID bullshit. And basically they were telling you at the airports that if you didn't have it, you couldn't fly, but then you would show up. And the system thus far, from my understanding or what I've seen from people that don't have it, is they basically put a card into your thing that says that you didn't have it and nothing happens. Now, apparently they're going to start charging people $45 if you don't have the real ID. Now, off the bat, let's just break this down. I was handed a license from the government. The fact that the government can then tell me that that's not a real form of identification is pretty cartoonish. And the conspiracy theorists will tell you that the new enhanced real ID is a push for the biometrics, because I think maybe they scan eyes or something when they do it. I didn't get it because I just kept my passport card, which is good enough for domestic travel. But that kind of sucks now, because I guess they're going to lie that they need the $45 in order to do enhanced screenings of you at the airport. And so you have to pay to fund the enhanced screenings of not having it. But it seems to me like it's purely a financial penalty to try and exert authority on people to actually go out and get the real IDs as they push for biometrics. I'm just throwing this at you, but what are your thoughts here, bud?
It's kind of already here, and a lot of stuff that's going on, like the Venezuela boat stuff you talked about. It's concerning, but it's also in the open. I feel like this would happen anyway. We just didn't know about it, right? And, whether it's the 80s, 90s, or whatnot. Although ironically, the U.S. government was actually the one trafficking drugs back then, but that's a different story, right? We were just on a different side. That movie with Tom Cruise where he's like flying the plane. But anyway, I think it's good to talk about, but there's not much we can do to change it. So I think the direction is pretty set. Using eyes does make the most sense. I mean, we already do fingerprints, right? Like, how long have police used fingerprints for? So I think it's coming, and I think there is some good stuff to it, perhaps, but it's going to be used just like everything else for control. But just stay one step ahead and just be smart, and then take it in stride, because it is coming, right? Like, so fight back where you can and talk about it, but like the ship is sailing.
I, for a long time at the airport, used to decline the face scanning, but the first couple times I was at the airport, I didn't, because I didn't really realize how easy it was to decline. And then once they'd already done it once, I was like, if they were taking something, they have it. All right, let's get into these new COVID storylines. We've got two from this past week, and we'll start with this one. This is from NBC News. FDA claims COVID shots killed 10 children and vows new vaccine rules. So, you know what? I won't even say anything about this. I will give it to you. Why don't you let us know what this new change is from the FDA, that they've actually recognized that the COVID shot has killed a couple kids?
Yeah, so this is actually putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because this is all based on a confidential memo that no one's actually seen. So what's actually happening is this is kind of leaked that's reporting that this memo is out there. I do believe it's real. And I think it's so significant and worth talking about, because it's an admission of not communicating risk properly. And whether they even knew about it or not is a different debate, but an important one, as they probably did, because they're scientists and they kind of just covered up, just like you guys will see on Rogan. What's his name? Brett Weinstein talks about how Fauci wanted to call natural immunity like something different, just because they really didn't want to recognize traditional means, because they really wanted to shove these jabs into people's arms, again, for, we can talk about those reasons. So this story back is just really, really significant, because they're admitting risk, and it's kind of when you see like one bug, where are all the other bugs, right? We need to shine a light here. And furthermore, it gets to like causation, because you can say correlation and brush it off, especially when you're talking about human beings. We're all very different, very sick. Like, someone's parents smoke a lot of cigarettes in the house, yada, yada. Just an example, And so when you talk about causation, it's a scientific term. In order to have causation, which I don't know, I'm just speculating, they would have to show like spike protein in the blood that caused inflammation that caused these kids to die of heart inflammation, right? You can't just say causation without having actual tests done, like an autopsy. So again, that's the significance of this study, but it's not surprising, or this.
Well,
I'm actually surprised it's not more.
From what we know is they did a lot to make sure that there wouldn't be good data to be able to figure these things out in retrospect. One of the biggest things they did was they vaccinated the control group even in the study. They were indicating unknown vaccine status as not vaccinated, which was a good scheme for when people were dying to say that they were unvaccinated. We also know that there were incentives when people were dying unvaccinated to claim that it was primarily from COVID and not necessarily from other morbidities.
It's
there was
like a popular joke now.
Right. So there was a lot screwy with the data. Amidst things that were screwy with the data is that we were relying on the VAERS system, I believe it is, which is not a great system because I've heard some people say that it might be overreported. I think most people think that it's probably underreported, but it's not like they formally like you would think if you wanted good data, every time that there had been a death after the vaccine was rolled out, you would have tested for the problem that you're mentioning of, I guess, if the spike protein's gone crazy or is causing myocarditis or whatever else or duplicating within the bloodstream. And you would then, if you were actually interested in knowing, hey, is this thing harmful, you would collect that data at the time of death. Instead, the system is essentially a doctor, if they choose to fill out this report, they can put it in. And so apparently just now they're looking through the reports and going, oh, it looks like we had 10 kids that were dead. But the chances that that's not an underreporting or that that's the best scientific way to kind of figure this out in either direction of either that this is an over or an underreport, I guess it's just the only thing. And it's a distorted signal because even if you wanted to say, well, this is the reporting system that we always use, and so by the metrics of how many kids usually die from a vaccine in their arm in an annual year, this is clearly alarming. You could go the other way with it and go, no, doctors were more in tune with this as being a new thing, and so they were more likely to report. So on all of that basis, it's not great scientific knowledge.
No, it's terrible. And a couple of things jumped out at me that what you said, this really wasn't a vaccine. They even changed the definition of vaccine.
Yeah, well, we covered that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and I call it vaccine too, so I'm not like harping on you. It's just really crazy how that language, I think what's that throwback to 1984, but this was more of a preventative genetic therapy. You would use things like mRNA as a gain of function, right? If someone had a gene mutation and their gene wasn't creating what you wanted them to create, you would inject mRNA into their body so they would gain the function of creating whatever you're injecting in their body. It was never really thought of a way to give you the gain of function of expressing something you're supposed to then attack, which is what with the kind of this crazy vaccine.
Looks like if they really... you get a little choppy on me. We missed that last part.
Sorry. Just like you would use mRNA as a gain of function. So if you wanted to fix something in someone by adding something, then you would use mRNA technology. You wouldn't use it if you were trying to express something foreign in your body that you wanted to somehow like go away, and then you wanted your body to react to. You would use it if you had a gene that was mutated and you wanted to replace that gene's function.
So just really speculative here. Let's just say that this report is actually coming out from the FDA, and they are attributing 10 children's deaths to the mRNA vaccine.
Right.
What's next steps? Do you think that they do a further investigation?
No, the next steps is to show the memo. And again, the harp on causation. Causation is such an important scientific term, especially when you're talking about a death, because you're saying this is exactly what caused it, this is how it caused it, and this is what we should look for in other people. So as soon as they really release specifically how these kids died, then we'll have a roadmap to look at other people.
But you're not excited that any of this is going to happen. That's what I'm hearing.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I am excited. I just already knew. I mean, it was like I knew this is kind of what we talked about. I mean, I don't want to brag, but like, of course, this was happening. And then they're going to release a roadmap that says, this is what happens when some kids get the vaccine. They progress to this point, and then some of the kids progress to this point. Some of the kids progress to this point, and then some of the kids die. And then they'll
Right.
literally give you a roadmap. So then we can look at all the kids that are injured and say, where on this roadmap are you, and what was that caused by? Although, of course, like we originally said, comparing and contrasting to people that also got infected with COVID is hard because the vaccine didn't stop people from getting infected from COVID. So everyone got the vaccine and got infected. So it makes the data really hard to interpret.
All right. Now, excuse me for a second here.
Yeah.
I have a problem in life that a lot of times I listen to audiobooks on double speed and I space out. And now I also, I don't even know how I did this job before I had Twitter Grok, because I go in there and I ask it every question on the news stories. I used to have to read 40 articles and try and piece things together. Now I read like 2 or 3 on a topic and I just ask Grok the questions of like all the things that the article's not telling me. And I'm able to kind of fill in the blanks. But now the AI gets things wrong, but it gets things wrong like your most confident friend that you've ever talked to in your entire life. And sometimes I have to really know a lot about what I'm thinking to like start asking it smarter questions for it to be like, oh yeah, I had that wrong type deal. And so I have a hard time putting together just how filled my head is with complete and total bullshit between the audiobooks and things that I've looked up on Twitter and just taken as fact. Now, when this storyline came out about the 10 deaths, I was looking into this for a full summary or a detailed report on Twitter, and Twitter was still trying to make the argument that I guess the vaccines were mostly beneficial for the younger population, and in part because of how many deaths that there were in the younger population from COVID. Now, when we were cooking on COVID for 2 years, I think you and I did some of the absolute best work on the topic. I knew all this stuff like the back of my hand. And I used to know exactly why when they were claiming this stuff, it wasn't accurate. I don't remember hearing that there were a lot of kids that died from COVID while COVID was going on. And so I went back to Twitter just to ask. I said, can you give me an age-by-age breakdown of how many kids died of COVID? And the number's about 1,000, and most of them are like in the teenage years. And maybe over a large enough population of 3 million people, 300 million people, or maybe there's like 100 million kids in this country, 1,000 people dying is a low death rate. And if you attributed some of this to comorbidities / some of these might have been flu deaths, we might be looking at flu numbers for all I know. And so that this is virtually nobody dying. But I just don't know enough about this. For anyone who still thinks that the vaccines were good for kids, because you and I don't, but let's just because people died of COVID who were, even under the age of 16 and 17, can you debunk that for us?
Yeah, it's really just COVID didn't affect those age brackets at the same rate. In fact, these same people, you can look at studies that say old people were 10,000 times more likely to suffer severe injuries from COVID based on their age bracket, particularly over 66. And this isn't surprising or new with COVID. If you look at cancer deaths have the same stratus, and it's really because your overall health is really determinative of these fatal events.
And you did great work on this show. People can go look it up, where a lot of COVID deaths was just dragging death forward of people that essentially would have been dying within a 3-month stretch.
And I did that by breaking down every 10 years what the CDC reported people died by. And you can see clear distributions, like people don't die from cancer or really flu until they get into their 50s or 60s. Same with heart disease. And this is the same type of epidemiology that COVID had. So it's not new. And so you would say that oh, look, this new fluoride in the water is helping young kids from heart attacks because young kids aren't having heart attacks now. And it's no. Young kids never had heart attacks, and they never do have heart attacks because that's just not a disease that affects a young heart. myocarditis outside. I'm talking about our certain types of etiology.
Okay.
So that's why childhood cancer is so rare and people are so sad about it.
Let me just try and re-ask this question. Is it accurate
Yeah.
that 1,000 kids died, and is that like more than like what would
Yeah, I think
normally
it's like
die from like a
16.
cold?
It's 1,600, but again, we're talking about hundreds of millions of kids. So we're talking about fractions of a percent, and much more kids died. Look, you can look up how many kids died in car accidents, right? So people are going to die, but this is ridiculous.
How many kids die of the flu every year?
I don't want to give you a false number, but I can go back in the presentation. But just as much as COVID, when you look at the younger age brackets, and some years when the flu is bad, it killed more kids.
Somebody in the chat, while we move on to the next topic, if you could just go to AI and ask, annually in the United States of America, how many kids under the age of 17 die of the flu, and give us an answer. All right.
Great idea.
All right, I want to cover one more thing, and then I might have to invite you back on for the BPC 157 thing.
That's fine, yeah.
All right, this was from Alex Berenson, which I sent over your way. He was claiming that Moderna disguised a childhood death in the pre-trials. They reported in Europe. They didn't report in the U.S. I skimmed the article, and it was something about basically just like re-reporting the study, and so that they were able to like drop it off because like they reported a new study in the U.S. I don't really understand the scheme. I was curious if you read the piece and you could tell us the accuracy of the claim.
No, I didn't read the piece, but as someone that like is publishing paper and doing kind of has done the type of data analysis, it's not unheard of to have different data sets for like different regulatory agencies, particularly if you had maybe like a new data come in over here. So I think a couple things are happening. They maybe didn't break the law, one. Maybe two, they are selectively using the data, just probably like Pfizer did during their original studies to make the vaccine look as good as possible, while other people were looking the other way, like regulators. But as far as like blatantly covering up a child death, I'm not going to say yes or no, because like I said, I'm not going to spend the 3 or 4 hours it's going to take to like get in and then try to find like, because it's not like you're uncovering information in a peer-reviewed paper where you can follow references and click and literally read the original research. We're talking about data that's on the books of Moderna, and they're not going to, give you a smoking gun. And even if they did, I don't know what good it would be. I think it's more valuable to actually look at the causation of these vaccines, to talk about risk versus reward per age bracket like we did, and then talk about what mandates mean. Because when you put those all together, it's the most insidious thing ever. And maybe if you take one of those things out, it's not that bad. But when you put the mandates in with the age bracket, how young people were hundreds of times more likely to suffer vaccine injuries, yet 10,000 times less likely to suffer from COVID, getting mandated the shots is really sick. Also, the very mRNA technology they use, like I mentioned, is really good for when someone's suffering and you want to add something to them, not when you're doing like a vaccine. And they knew that. So I think there should be more emphasis on these scientists like Fauci, like literally knowing what they were doing, covering it up, and then pushing it through, acting like there wouldn't be consequences, which is interesting.
All right, so we got 10 more minutes. Why don't you let us know about what you've delved into with BPC 157? I've personally taken it with some success. I can attribute to you to what extent my muscle tears and injuries were recovered from the BPC 157, or because I've got incredibly strong Jew blood and did a lot of squats in my living room and push-ups and other things to try and rehabilitate my wounds. I will tell you this. I like it. I do find I like it. It's not like it wasn't Wolverine blood as people had described to me. I did 2-3 month stretches on it, and it's not like I was miraculously healed. Like it was not. It was soft enough that like things repaired, but not like I couldn't be like, oh, this saved my life or this made a huge difference. One thing I did notice, and it's actually what I don't like about the drug, is that it largely curbs my IBS And I actually don't like that because I kind of have a good schedule with what I'm prepared for out of my stomach. Whereas when I take it, after 37 years of figuring out, eat meals at home, be home for this amount of time, then go out, all of a sudden I didn't instantly have to use the restroom. I'll be like, shit, is this just going to be in my stomach type deal? And so in my own weird Jew way, I didn't love it because it definitely has IBS benefits. And I was like, I think I like the old system. I kind of had that one figured out. But I know that you've been doing some work. You're getting something published. I hope you actually figure out a way to monetize this, make some money. But why don't you let us know what you're working on?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. You're talking about oral BPC, right?
Yeah, I never. I'm too much of a pussy to be injecting shit.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I talked to, that's really, really interesting. And that's naturally where BPC was found in a protein fragment in the stomach. And just a little bit about the paper. Rob and his buddy Chris Faga, right? He does, they were talking a lot about BPC, and I was familiar with peptides, and so I wanted to look into it, and no one actually knows how BPC 157 works. It's a small 15 amino acid peptide that's been shown to really help athletes heal, particularly in tendons and mucoskeletal wound healing models and animals. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to connect a fluorescent glow-in-the-dark protein to BPC 157 protein in kind of like a fusion protein engineering.
Steven's doing gain-of-function research.
That's actually exactly what it was. And I actually paid a company and I gave them a DNA sequence, and they used that DNA sequence to create a virus for me. And they used that virus that was encoding my protein, my glow-in-the-dark BPC protein, and they actually got it expressed in insect cells. And this paper actually kind of talks about how I designed it, why I designed it. And then it also kind of gives
You're building a BPC virus that can make next generation super soldiers?
Yeah, and it makes you glow in the dark red. It's called M Cherry. How cool is that? I was like,
cool if it just made your dick glow in the dark?
Of course. And healthier probably, because it would glow in the dark, and the signal of the glow in the dark, and what's so novel about this, would be correlated to where BPC 157 is. So this way we can find out where it goes in the body, because we can.
So you're working on glow in the dark super penises so that you can go out to a club and people can see your penis glowing through your pants, and then they know that you're rich and you've got the good dick, and then they sleep with you.
That would be interesting. You think like some dick cream that made your dick different colors would be popular?
I love that this is what this devolved into. Steven, it's always a pleasure. I hope you come out the next time I'm out in California. As I said, only a couple dates left on the year. You can come hang out with me out in Colorado. Also, I got I should have plugged this earlier. I got 2 weekend gigs this week. I'm doing the Don't Tell in Norwalk, Connecticut, and then I'm doing the Don't Tell show in Peekskill, New York. I know the other comics on the lineup. There's some real funny people there. And the Don't Tell shows are very porch toury. They get random locations. You don't know about it till beforehand. Everyone I've done has been a fun show. And then closing out the year, opening for Sam Tripoli on New Year's. You know what? I haven't gotten the dates for the Don't Tells up on my website, but I will try and do that before Friday. So if you live in those areas, you want to come out, robbernsteincomedy.com. Steven, why don't you let people know, is Cell Shot Nutrition still in action?
Yeah, we're good. I mean, I more just slang them to housekeepers at work who pay like cash for them, and then I pay taxes on them later, of course. And so it's more like under the radar. I'm probably not going to get more shots made. I still got a couple thousand to go through. A lot of my money's been going through this paper. You should check it out. Maybe it will be linked. A lot of fusion protein engineering, in silico docking, a lot of AI stuff too. So to your AI point, I actually used AI to help me do this. I would not have been able to publish or to get a paper like this without AI. And you do need to double check. Sometimes it gave me completely fake studies. So I would ask it a question and tell it to cite like a scientific paper. I would then look that scientific paper up in PubMed, and it just wouldn't fucking exist.
All right, wait. Last question before I let you go. What's your Bitcoin prediction? People are getting a little bit spooked. We had a dip, rebounded real quick. Michael Saylor's talking about selling. Apparently a bunch of whales were moving things over to the exchanges. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I would say talk to someone that's been here since at least like 2017. There's been a lot more FUD, and it's been a lot more scary in the past. The movements have been terrible though. I'm kind of out of Bitcoin now. But like, yeah, it still makes my stomach hurt when I watch it. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and my prediction for Bitcoin, I would say just dollar cost average. You probably should have been buying in the 80s. I would have bought in the 90s when it came down the first time, and then I would have been like yelling probably bad stuff and been grumpy for a week while it was in the 80s, and I cashed out like I didn't have any money. But then I would have been happy now when it went up 8%, and I would probably still dollar cost average. I would get in below 100. Yeah, institutions are still getting in, but don't be afraid to sell. And that also goes to the gold bugs and people that like silver, dude. Are you miners out there? Like, if you get a 50% run up, just sell it and put it into something else.
There you go. Steven's wise words. That is our episode. Back probably Friday because I only covered about half the topics I'd planned. Thank you, everybody. Steven, hold on a minute.